Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Yes, before you ask, your eyes are not deceiving you. I have trimmed the beard off. So, yeah, it feels kind of weird, I'll be honest. It's been a long time since I haven't had a beard. I couldn't go kind of fully clean shaven, so got a bit of stubble there, and it'll grow back in a few days. So, but yeah, probably feels kind of weird now. So let's have a look and see who we've got in the chat. Hope everyone had an awesome weekend, by the way. We've got quite a few in it. I apologise for anybody that I missed earlier on in the night because the chat jumps off. But we had Trevor Chadwick in earlier on. Good evening, buddy. We've got Peter Nicholas in there as well. Good evening to you, Peter. Busey's in as well. Steve Evans and Paul Palms are in as well. Good evening to you, fine gentlemen. And we had a bit of chat there, and then we had Johnny Jambo come in. Hello, Johnny. How are you, mate? Christian's in as well. The legend that is Mr. Reeves. Good evening, mate. How are you doing? Everyone, Johnny said, not long till we see the great unbearded one. Yeah, what can I say? Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Steve said it's going to be scary. We've got Pete Smith in as well. Good evening, Pete. So he's managed to get a work trip delayed for a day so I could catch the stream. I appreciate it, mate. I really do appreciate it. We've got Glenn in as well, saying evening to the BlackJackers. We've got Tim Cavity in as well. Good evening to you as well, mate. We've got Doug in from 2 Plus Tough. Good evening to you, mate. Is it afternoon for you? I wake up in the morning and see you kind of like streamed 2 or 3 hours ago, so I know we're kind of out of sync time-wise, but I'm never sure whether you're ahead or behind. We've got Al Clulian as well and Robert Zunk. Good evening to you two, gents. Peter saying to Pete, that's commitment to the stream. It certainly is. Antonio's in as well. Good evening, Antonio. Apologies if we have spoken before, but yours seems like a new name, so thank you very much for dropping in. And Doug saying you look 5 years younger. It's taking some getting used to, mate. When you haven't got much up here, all you can really do if you fancy a change is change the shape of your beard, really. So, yeah, just why not? Bit of a change. I keep looking over there because that's where my screen is. I can't see it on the camera. What else we got? We've Peter saying imposter. The voice is the same, but the face is different, eh? Glenn saying it's not Andy, it's a Royal Mask. Michael Marines is in as well, saying hello from sunny Arizona. Delbrove, evening fella. Aggression's in as well from up north as well. Good evening to you, mate. Mark says he's back. Mark did comment earlier on, but for some reason it dropped off the chat. Jason Collins, he says, glad to make it on here. My drive home from work. Got some mercenaries this weekend and really enjoyed them. Sadly, my stuff hasn't arrived yet. Otherwise, we'd have been talking about that tonight and kind of playing my first games and all that kind of stuff. However, they haven't turned up yet. Still waiting for the postie to deliver them. So unfortunately, I haven't had my hands on the new stuff yet. So I haven't got the new Ravaged Lands terrain box, and I haven't got the Monsters and Mercenaries book yet. So the postman's kind of dragging his heels, unfortunately. Craig says, evening all, how's everyone? Just finishing off these oak planes for Aeronautica. You feeling the cold? Luckily, it's not been too chilly yet, mate. But to be fair, my head gets it first anyway. Al says, looking fresh. Wilder Neil says, boom, boom. Boom, boom to you, Wilder Neil. Fab B says, good evening from Belgium. Good evening from Belgium, mate. Doug is saying there, it's 1 p.m. over there. I schedule my videos for 4 a.m. my time. I have to try. So you're 8 hours behind. That'll be why when I wake up in the morning, you've kind of you've got your videos going live. PMC says hello from hot as F Alabama. We've got a good international mix in tonight, haven't we? I kind of wonder. I wonder whether we've got more kind of more stateside people than we have Europeans at the minute. That's not bad though. Peter Nicholas says you look like Vin Diesel. Slightly different coloured skin, but yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, there's worse things in life to look like, isn't there? Tony Howell says evening as well. Paul Palm says I think you look like Jason Statham. I probably look like Jason Statham if he decided to just quit working out and just eat pies all day. Then maybe it's Jason Statham. We've got James Zarmin as well. He says greetings, Andy. Just killing off the last few minutes at work. That's it, mate. The day's over. That's not too bad, is it? Juan is in as well. He says West Coast, Best Coast in Southern California. We've got Bruce in as well from Oakland, California. Good evening, Bruce. Skull Muncher's in. Haven't seen you in ages, mate. How are you doing? Nice to see you back. G Daddy Gamer is in as well. Says must be in the same time zone. I'd like to say thank you as well to you, sir. You've just become one of my Patreons this week. Thank you very much. That's massively appreciated. Tony says, evening, young man, looking pretty sharp. Well, what can you do? VJ's in as well. Says morning to all. So we've now got the Australians are starting to come as well. We've got Cardos in as well from Tennessee. We've got Chris is in there as well from Chicagoland area. Doug's in Santa Cruz. PMC says they do live in Birmingham. Is that Birmingham, Alabama? Not Birmingham, UK, isn't it? Andy Smith says hello from Vegas. Henry Mendes is in as well, doing his drive to pick up his sons. And Antonio says, why did you shave? Did you lose a bet with your wife? You know what? I have to kind of shave my head maybe once a week, maybe twice a week. And I went to have a shave at the weekend, and I just thought, fancy a change. So I decided to do I just kind of trim it back a little bit, or do I kind of go all off? And I just thought, I'm going to take it off. It's good for my skin to get a bit of fresh air once in a while. So I'll kind of shave it off to a little bit of stubble, and then it'll probably come back in the next few days anyway. Not to the length it was, but it'll start to get more like a beard in the next week. So yeah, just for a bit of fun, mate, just for a change. We've got Barry in as well. So he's managed to pick up his copy of the Monsters and Mercenaries book. I'm gutted, I still haven't got mine. Jonathan's in Manchester. Hello, Jonathan. Is that Manchester, UK, or Manchester over in the States? I think there's a Manchester in in northeast the States, isn't there? I think. Mark's in as well, so he's just painting his iron golems. Ruth's in as well, having a little wave there. Hello. VJ says it's 6 a.m. here, so he's got to get his arse out of bed. We've got Tom from California as well, San Ramon. Yeah, PMC is Alabama. We've got Voctors in Newfoundland. Christopher Walker's just driving through, and Pat Sennett says howdy from the southeast of Ireland. We've got a proper international flavour tonight. Thank you, one and all of you, for tuning in. So, while I just play around with my screen here so I can see what's going on. Tonight's chat. Jonathan Hart, Manchester, UK. Nice to see you, buddy. I spent a bit of time in Manchester, that's why I asked. So, tonight's chat. As I said, my Monsters and Mercenaries book hasn't come. Therefore, I haven't played any games this weekend with it. So, therefore, I can't really talk about it with any kind of confidence to say I know what I'm talking about. So, unfortunately, that'll have to wait for another live stream. So, what I thought I'd do was have a little chat about the differences and the similarities between Warcry and Kill Team. Because there's a few people been asking me questions about what's the difference? Are they the same? Is Kill Team just sort of 40k version of Warcry? There's some people who are kind of really enjoying Warcry as their first ever miniatures game and wondering, I wonder if I'll enjoy kind of Kill Team just as much. And kind of people just asking about similarities and differences. So I thought we'll touch on some of them tonight. We'll see what you folks think about it as well, because I'm sure between you all, some of you will have played Warcry, some of you will have played Kill Team, some of you will have played both, and you'll be able to help me out with some of your opinions and your thoughts as well. And just to kind of give a little bit of an overview about if you like one, will you like the other kind of thing, or is one more aimed at a certain type of gamer? So that's kind of a bit of a rough outline about where we're going to be. Bobby Clark's in as well. Good evening, Bobby. He said he's from just down the road near Hexham. I think that's probably just up the road from me, mate. JK's in from Wales as well. Good evening, JK. Paul's looking forward to the chat. And Jonathan says he's near Element, been playing a lot of Warcry with Jay. Hopefully see you there sometime. I quite often pop down into there, mate, and pop in and see Jay. So yeah, hopefully we'll cross paths in the near future. Are you going to the Weekender in October? So for those that are in the UK and are looking for a bit of Warcry, the guys from Top Table Gaming, Jay and Steve, and myself run a weekend event, and it is on Friday the 11th of October through to Sunday the 13th of October, and it's 3 full days of just kind of casual, fun, laid-back gaming. We do have some sort of events, like sort of like organised events. or kind of disorganized players, we like to call it. So it's not mega competitive. If you've never played before, the idea is it's a perfect way to kind of dip your toe in and just kind of play more games. We have Walking Dead, we have Kings of War Vanguard, we have 40k, we have 2 different one-day events of strategy, Middle-earth strategy battle games. We have Aristea as well, and we also have a Warcry event. Oh, I haven't long eaten my dinner and it's kind of riffing on me now. We have a Warcry event as well. So if you are interested in coming along, tickets are £35 for the entire 3 days of gaming and entry into any event you want to take part in. It also includes a goodie bag on arrival as well, which will pretty much kind of give you your £35 worth back. And it's at Element Games in Manchester, so which is a kind of Stockport just outside of Manchester. So if you are interested, either contact me personally or head across to Facebook and you'll find the Top Table Legacy Weekender Facebook page. And it is Weekender 2 because we've already had the first one back in March. So yeah, if anybody's interested in that and they want to play in a bit of a kind of a more casual Warcry event, head over to there. What else we got? Busey saying full Aussie breakfast at 6 a.m. Shrimps, egg and bacon and a can of Fosters. Just what you need, mate. Hodginder's in as well. Says, hey dude, beard's looking fresh. Yeah, needs another couple of days, I think, just to come back. Craig saying he likes Warcry. It makes you move with it being more close combat than sit and shoot. Yeah, we'll come on to that when we start talking Kill Team. Tom the Bomb's in as well. He says that Tom from US, love both games. Good to see your input as well tonight, mate. Glenn saying for any future take on Kill Team should try to do its own rule set and not try to be 40k rules for skirmish. Yeah, I'll come on to that because it's a good point. Remind me if I don't start talking about the kind of 40k light aspect. Al says he's finding Kill Team ponderous, having got used to the speed of Warcry. Another good point. 12 Neefs in as well. Paul saying he wish it could come. Next time, buddy, I'll give you plenty of notice. Just saying here, can't stay long, he's running around at work. Thanks for popping in, man. Busey saying we prefer a US brekkie, to be fair. That was just for a bottle of Budweiser instead of the Fosters. Root saying first weekend it was amazing, great fun all 3 days, lovely friendly people. Can't wait to see everyone and more people again. Can't wait to catch up with you two. Be really good to see you both again. Nobby says, who's this guy? I'm just the younger, better looking brother, just to kind of take over the stream for the night. Neil says, pretty cool, you got your own event, must be chuffed. Yeah, it's quite nice, really. I mean, it's quite stressful to organise. There's a lot goes into it to make sure that kind of it all runs relatively smoothly. Even during the weekend, it's kind of, you can never fully relax, really, because you always want to make sure everyone's having a good time. People have paid money, you don't want to let them down. It would be nice to go to the event and enjoy it, I think, rather than actually run it. But yeah, it's cool, mate. I enjoy it. Mark says no one in Australia drinks Fosters. And Christian, I think he's trying to put a link for the weekender in, but I wonder if it's not letting you put. The what's the word I'm looking for? Like the web addresses and stuff in. I'm not sure. So let's crack on there. Let's make a start. So, Warcry, relatively new, is the skirmish game, obviously based in the world of Age of Sigmar. Kill Team, been out about a year now, maybe a little bit longer than a year, and is the skirmish game based in the world of Warhammer 40k. Now, when Kill Team came out, and this is the latest rule book here, with all of my little tabs in, so I can remember all the bits I need to reference. Not tonight, just when I'm playing. When Kill Team first came out, and I'm going to touch on that thing you just said about being 40k light, I was really, really excited for it coming out because I've always wanted to try and get into 40k. I won't go into the history of why I've never played it before. I've talked about that a number of times. If anybody hasn't heard that story, I'll mention it later. But I have tried to get into 40k and failed a number of times. And I love the 40k universe. I love the lore of 40k, but I could just never really get into the game. One of the reasons being building big armies. So I thought for me, Kill Team would be the perfect opportunity to try and break down that initial barrier. And it was a completely new rule set from the old Kill Team, which had been kicking around for a few years, and I think it had last been updated maybe in 6th or 7th edition. I think 6th edition rings a bell. So it was brand new rule set written by a new team, and essentially it was kind of 40k light. It had, if you played 40k, the game would feel very familiar to you. A lot of the things in the game feel like 40k. However, there was enough differences to kind of make it the skirmish game work better that it was a really interesting rule set. Now, when I say there was a difference, the biggest difference is in the way you activate and take your turns. So in 40k, you roll for initiative. If you win initiative, you move your models, you shoot with your models, you do your charges and stuff as well. You do your close combat. You do everything with your entire army, and then your opponent gets to kind of reply to that. In Kill Team, the activation order is very different. So you still have your initiative roll off. Whoever rolls the initiative gets to choose, I think, or gets to go first. And you move all of your models. Then your opponent gets to move all of their models. And then there's a weird activation order where basically if you chose not to move in the movement phase, you get to shoot first. So it goes back to player 1 and they get to shoot with any models that didn't move. Then it goes to player 2 and they get to shoot with any models that didn't move. Then it goes back to player 1 and they get to shoot models that did move and can shoot. And it goes backwards and forwards like that till eventually you go down into close combat and you do all of the combat stuff as well. Now, what this means is one army isn't just coming over and bulldozing you. In 40k, if you've played it, you'll know the first army that activates or the first army that can get into range tends to do a lot of damage because there's not much your opponent has been able to do to kind of anticipate that movement. So you do get sometimes those kind of like alpha strikes of I move over and then I sort of absolutely kind of cause carnage. If you do that in a skirmish game, pretty dull. But basically, if you had say Marines with long range weapons and you basically move and shoot and blast everybody off the board and charge in and combat and wipe them out before they've even had a chance to kind of retaliate, that would make a very one-sided skirmish game. So I like what they did with the activation rules. What I would say is it does slow down the game a bit. Because unlike Warcry, where it's I move a model, I activate a model, you activate a model, I activate a model, you activate a model, and it's very kind of straightforward what you can do. Kill Team kind of bogs down a little bit, where it's like, right, let's look at all the tokens. So who didn't move, who's eligible to shoot, right, now who's next, and you go in this kind of weird initiative order. The next thing from that as well is, in Warcry, as you will know, there is one dice roll. So if you get into combat, but be that at a ranged combat or in close combat, there's just that kind of that fight phase, that combat phase. And it doesn't matter whether it's ranged or whether it's kind of like up close. And there's that one dice roll where you've got toughness versus what's it called? Oh, my mind went blank there. You know what I mean? My strength, against your toughness, the comparison on that, and then you roll your dice, or you roll that many dice, and then you do that many wounds. In Kill Team, you roll the hit, and there is a comparison against sort of strength and toughness again. There is a roll to wound when it's to do with the weapon profile and against armor ratings. Then there is a roll to save from your opponent, and then there's also an injury roll as well. And some armies have invulnerable saves, and some armies like Death Guard have what they call a disgustingly resilient save as well, the same as in 40k. So if you're starting to get used to the game, there are a lot of kind of tables and kind of like what's your strength, what's your toughness, what's your defense kind of thing. There's a lot of comparing of stuff, and there's a lot of dice rolling. And you can roll dice again and again and again, and basically nothing happens. So, personally, I didn't mind it when I first started playing Kill Team. But since playing Warcry, I much prefer it. because it's just more streamlined. And I like the fact that basically they've bumped up the wounds, they've bumped up the damage, and it just feels like stuff's happening in the battlefield. In Kill Team, it feels quite tactical because you've only maybe got one wound, or I think like sort of Primaris Marines might have 2 wounds. So you can get taken off, you can be one-shot off the board, but actually when you have to roll to hit and roll to wound, and then fail a save, and then roll on the injury table, roll for injury dice as well, all of those things need to happen. So actually if you do manage to one-shot somebody off the board, it's not been a kind of a lucky one dice roll, if you like. So that's some of the kind of the bigger differences about it. When it comes to the actual gameplay itself, in Warcry, you have your model, he's got his weapon, that's basically it. He's got a stat line, that's all there is. Within Kill Team, you can choose the weapons that you want to have on your models. And this is done in a different way. So within Kill Team, for example, if you get the Iron Golem's Warband, you get your Ogre Breacher, comes with these stats. In Kill Team, if you want to have a Primaris Marine, you can choose what kind of weapon to equip him with, and then that will increase his points cost, and then that will give you a different stat line for his weapon and for how many kind of dice you can roll and what you need to hit, that kind of stuff. So list building is a lot more granular, if you like, within Kill Team than it is kind of very simplistic in Warcry. So there's a couple of big differences there in those two things. One thing Kill Team did really, really well was all of the rules for the models are designed around when you buy a box of models. So if you buy a box of 10 Primaris Marines, the only weapons you can use on those models in the stats in the book are the weapons that come on the sprue. So it wasn't a case of, I want to put a missile launcher on this Primaris Marine, but you don't get a missile launcher in the box, so now I've got to go and buy some kind of tactical Marines or something else that has a missile launcher so I can kind of kit bash this. There's none of that. They designed the rules around what comes in the boxes, and that makes you feel like you're not buying redundant stuff, or you're not having to buy twice as much stuff to have kind of one warband, if you like, or one Kill Team. That's really, really clever, I think. The downside of that is they've never released anything specifically for Kill Team that then went into 40k. Now there is a caveat to that. When they released Rogue Trader, you could use the Rogue Trader factions in 40k. Excuse me. But in general, Kill Team came out. It was with, I think there was, I can't remember what was in the box now. There was Gene Stealers in there and Adeptus, not Adeptus Mechanicus. Was it Adeptus Mechanicus? It might have been. I forget now. Skitarii, those guys. So there was the two kind of these two warbands in the box, or these Kill Teams in the box, but they were existing models. There was nothing new. So it never felt, even if for me, somebody new to the game, I felt like all I could buy was existing stuff that's been kicking around for years, and it never felt special in that regard. It did give me a chance to build some really kind of like little cool warbands. So I built up my Marines originally, and I've got a Necron warband, and I've also got a Space Wolves warband. I keep saying warband, I mean Kill Teams. Space Wolves. I've got a Death Guard one with a mixture of Plague Marines and what they called, the kind of the Plague. I forget what they're called now. The human looking dudes who were all kind of melted and stuff. Got those in as well. So I have managed to build up some quite cool little Kill Teams. However, there was never anything there was never that kind of like new warband that was dead exciting and I was looking forward to trying it out. It was just existing stuff. What was I just going to say? I glanced at the chat there and saw something highlighted. I was trying to read it. The Warcry, conversely, has released with 6 brand new warbands, and that's generated a lot of interest and a lot of kind of excitement from people who don't even play AOS. I think people who didn't play 40k and then saw Kill Team still had to be interested in 40k to want to try out Kill Team. I think the difference with Warcry is if you've never played AOS and AOS didn't really sort of interest you, the new warbands were potentially a reason to still dive in and give the game a try. So I've spoke about a lot of stuff there. There's been a load of chat there. I need a little drink of water, and then I'll very quickly just have a look at some of the stuff in the chat, and then I'll come on and start talking about some of the other bits and pieces. So I'll just dive in halfway somewhere. Where is it? Andy Smith saying, can we do bolt action one week, please? If there's enough interest, mate, we certainly can. I don't know a massive amount about it. I started painting up that Banner Brothers War sort of starter box. I don't know a lot about it. But if they're, I will talk about anything that people are interested in. So feel free to give me suggestions. Jonathan is saying he runs a group for Kill Team on a Sunday every week at Element and always have a blast. Playing a lot of standard and just getting into elites. I'll come on to that sort of stuff, elites and commanders and arena and stuff in a minute. Paul says, don't say anything bad about Kill Team. I will phrase this with, I really like Kill Team. I drifted away from it for multiple reasons, and I'll touch on them as well. But I'm going to play it again. I like the game. It's just very different to Warcry, and that's why I'm trying to compare the two, really. Dimitri saying Necromunda is better than Kill Team. The problem with Necromunda, from my personal opinion, is it is just too rules heavy. And it doesn't feel like a skirmish game. It feels like an RPG to me personally. It feels less of a game and more of a... It's more of an adventure, more of a mission, if you like. You're trying to play out the story almost. That's the way it's always felt to me. So I don't really think you can compare Necromunda to Kill Team from a skirmish game perspective. Paul says, Kill Team's 40k skirmish, what could be bad about that? It's perfect. Nick Yellen's in as well, good evening, mate. Peter saying he often plays 40k in small scale, always enjoyed that. Now that was what somebody else had told me, if you like, why not just play 40k at 500 points or something like that? I think the problem was nobody really wanted to play that. The people that played 40k were all very tournament focused and 2,500 points, ITC stuff, all this kind of stuff. Or ITS, ITC. ITS, I think, is Infinity, I think, and ITC is 40k, or the other way around. Nobody was interested in playing at 500 points, where Kill Team almost brought out this, like, sort of band of Kill Team players, if you like. So that was why Kill Team felt like the easier route in for me. Singbo says a more separate rule set for Kill Team would help reduce the impression that Kill Team is always at least one step out of date with respect to the latest 40k developments. I think the problem is, mate, is people want to compare 40k and Kill Team because they're so closely linked. Where I think the difference between Warcry and AOS is people are basically judging them as two completely separate things. And I think that is one of the downfalls of Kill Team, actually. It's still thought of as 40k light. It's almost a case of, well, who is it for? If you like that comment before, if you want to play 40k, just play 40k at small points. You don't even need Kill Team. I'd rather Kill Team now, with hindsight, I'd rather Kill Team had a much different rule set to 40k and was its own thing. However, that said, doesn't make it a bad game. Peter says then Necromunda came along. Necromunda was along before Kill Team. That's the thing. Vokdor says I find the injury roll the part the most different to 40k. That can be quite confusing, that injury roll thing, about how many injury dice do you roll. It's the strength of the weapon, not how many attacks you had or not how many hits you took. That is quite different. And to be fair, I'm not even sure it was needed. It almost just feels like another role there just to complicate things. And I'm sure it is. I'd rather they upped the amount of wounds that models had and got rid of the injury rule, because that would have, I think that might have achieved the same thing. But I think the problem is they try to align the wounds on the models in Kill Team with the wounds on the models in 40k. And that was where they kind of come unstuck, I think, in that regard. Aggression says, started a club at the school he's working in. Would need at least one set of the full Warcry to play with my group. But can I do it with the core rules only? If you've got 2 warbands, mate, you can do it with the rules alone. You don't need a full set. You need something to play on. You need some dice. You need a couple of warbands, and you need the rules, and that's it. So if you've got an area to play on and you've got some dice, and you can maybe use a couple of AOS factions if people have them, the ones that are available for Warcry, you could give it a go with that. Zingbo says, for example, everyone sees the new update for Space Marines in 40k, so in Kill Team they fade out of date. Yeah, I don't agree with you. I don't disagree with you, mate. That's why I wish they were completely separate. That's why I wish they were just seen as different games in the same universe in the way Warcry and AOS is. Jonathan Hart says he totally agree, makes a massive difference. Paul says he looks at Kill Team like a board game version of 40k. Like I say, I kind of saw Kill Team as a route into 40k for me. But actually what happened was I actually just found that I preferred buying and painting lots of different warbands. Keep saying warband. Lots of different kill teams for Kill Team, rather than expanding one into a full 40k army. Might not always be the case, but I find having different armies to play was more interesting than just keep growing that one Kill Team up over. Barry saying there was a 7th edition Kill Team box, had miniature 7th edition rulebook, squad of Marines, a squad of Tau, very inexpensive. That's what dragged me into 40k. Yeah, I remember that one, mate. I don't think the rules were that streamlined, and I think the problem was they basically tried to take the 40k rules and scale them down for very small battles, and I don't think it worked particularly well. From what I've been told, Kill Team was that almost let's try and fix that a bit by switching up some of the rules. Animus is in as well. He says, hello, I had high hopes for Kill Team being a brand new streamlined activation system, but ended up being copy-pasted stats with a few edits and lots of book flipping. Yes, hence why I've got all of these little coloured tabs in here. So for example, like this one basically takes me to the rules about the movement phase. This one takes me through to psychic phases. There's a flip here. I've got one that in the top here, which takes me through to the match play mission that we were playing. I've got another one in that takes me through to the stats for the models. There is quite a bit of book flicking, and like any game, I'm sure that all gets easier over time. But yeah, there is quite a bit of that. 12 News says, I don't see a better game. Just which do you prefer more? Before I read the rest of your comment there, mate, I completely agree. And this isn't kind of Kill Team versus Warcry, isn't a which is the better game. It's more about which one is the better game for you personally. Which one fits your gaming needs. And it's not as simple as, well, I prefer fantasy, so it's definitely Warcry, or I prefer sort of sci-fi, so it's definitely Kill Team. When it comes down to it, they are both skirmish games by Games Workshop. And if that's what you're looking for, a GW skirmish game, these two are very different. And that's what I'm trying to kind of show today. So it's not about saying which one's better. Horses for courses, mate, they've got different pros and cons. Where are we at? He says he's played both, prefers Underworlds over all of them. And again, that is a very different play experience. And whilst it does use AOS models, or uses, well, models set in the AOS universe, it's a completely different play experience. And for me, it's not even a skirmish game. It's a card game that happens to have miniatures. Paul saying the fact that you buy lots of 40k squads, I like the look of and try them out. Don't have to invest all the time and money building a 3,000 point army. That was where I started from. That was my route in. Nostock again says Kill Team Arena is the most interesting for me in its separation to 40k. Then we stopped playing 40k and played small scale Apocalypse. Small scale Apocalypse. It's weird, isn't it? Like small scale Apocalypse sounds like it should just be 40k. But yeah, Arena was interesting. Paul saying it's all about buying cool stuff and painting it. Could not agree more, mate. That's exactly where my entire hobby has always been and will always be. Zingbo says he likes the more detailed list building that some Kill Team factions offer, and that's one of the biggest differences. Really, there is some very there's a lot more models to choose from in Kill Team at this point in time. From a so from Untamed Beast, for example, you've got the box set with those in. From you look at Marines in Kill Team, there's a raft of different things you can choose, and then there's different weapons that you can put on them as well, and you can kind of tweak your points around to do that. So yeah, it's definitely more in depth. Where I am at this point in time, I prefer the simplicity of Warcry, but that might not always be the case. Christian saying, don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you, Christian. And he's saying, yeah, Gene Stealer Cult. What did I say? It was Gene Stealer Cult that was in the box, but maybe that wasn't what I said. Zingbo saying there's been a couple of commanders, heroes who appeared in Kill Team rather than 40k first. Yeah, maybe that was just a way to try and sort of generate a bit of interest in Kill Team, but no doubt within a matter of weeks there'll have been stat lines for them in 40k. Poxwalkers, that was the word I couldn't remember. I even painted some of them on the channel as well, and I can't remember the names. Zingbo saying being able to play 40k type forces at skirmish scales what drew him to Kill Team and back into the hobbies after a 25-year absence. I think it did with a lot of people, mate, and I would love to know whether those people moved on to 40k, whether they stayed with Kill Team, or whether they drifted off and started playing other stuff. But it definitely dragged people back into the hobby. I think that was a kind of a really, really big plus point from that box set. Michael saying Kill Team's definitely 40k light and Warcry is 100% its own game. Agenda saying I think everything AOS-ish models has interested me more than 40k, even though I'm more involved into the 40k lore. It's interesting because I'm very much more of a sci-fi kind of, like if I was going to choose a film or a book to read, I'd choose sci-fi over fantasy. Fantasy's never really been a big thing for me. But I started to get into fantasy gaming with Kings of War Vanguard, sort of back end of last year. And I enjoyed the game, but there wasn't a lot of lore around it, so it wasn't like I was reading books on kind of Kings of War and stuff like that. Warcry has dragged me in from both perspectives. The models in the game is fantastic, and I love reading the lore around it as well. It's the first time I've ever read any fantasy stuff, really. As everybody always tells me when I say I hadn't seen the Lord of the Rings films until recently, I still haven't seen Return of the King, and I've never read the books when I was a kid or anything like that. Fantasy's just never really been my bag, really. However, I am a massive Star Wars fan. So. Paul's having a chat there as well. Buckdor says he's found Warcry better design as it reduces unnecessary. It's just on the top of my screen, so I'm trying to find it back again. Unnecessary rules by combining them. I think Warcry is the product of a lot of learning from Kill Team. In the same way, Season 1 of Underworlds is being phased out because they learned a lot. And Season 2 was better, and Season 3 will improve upon it again. The rules writers are only human. They're creating new games, and it takes time to get it right. And I think there's been a lot of learnings from Kill Team that they've taken over into Warcry. One of them, I'm sure, will be having new models to kind of keep people interested. Streamlining the rules, because the game is kind of aimed at people who don't have a lot of time on their hands, be that for hobbying or for gaming itself. So I think streamlining the rules as well in Warcry has really helped as well. Doesn't make Kill Team a bad game, I must stress that. It just makes them very different games. Busey's saying if only someone could come up with some solo missions for this game. I think that there are people working on them. I might even give them a try myself at some point. You know, like if I'm stuck in a hotel or something, I might try and start working through some ideas. And Busey's saying there, even if it's not GW themselves, yeah. I don't even think GW do any solo games. It almost goes against kind of what they try to do of bringing people together to play games, doesn't it? Paul's saying the same thing there, sorry. Zingbo is saying that's true. The similarities in 40k and Kill Team systems make it a problem. Yeah. Right, there's a few more bits and pieces there. I'm going to kind of crack on now a little bit more. So, where you have the initiative rules in Warcry, which basically give you the kind of the chance to use abilities, which is your doubles and your triples and your quads, or your ability to kind of steal initiative. Kill Team has command points in the same way 40k has command points. And rather than kind of having to get a double or triples or anything like that, there is a number of command points. You get one command point every turn. Some armies can generate more by doing different things, and they also have a balancing mechanic. So if your kill team, and I think it's, if I'm right off the top of my head, 200 points is a kill team. If you are 10 points less than your opponent, so if you've got 200 points and I've got 190, I'll get another command point. If you've got 200 and I've got 180, I'll get 2 command points. So even if you haven't got enough models to make a full 200 points up, there are some benefits to that. So there's that kind of similarity of there are things, kind of sort of mechanics in the game to allow you to do some kind of special things, be that abilities in Warcry or command points to do things in Kill Team. The difference is, in Kill Team, the command points, the options, the different things you can do are kind of scattered all over the book. So you're constantly flicking backwards and forwards and looking through different things. In Warcry, you have a very limited amount of abilities you can do, and they're all on a card in front of you. So you've got your faction-specific abilities, and then you've got your universal abilities. And they're on cards in front of you during the game, and you get used to those kind of ones. I found when I was playing, the sheer choice and the sheer number of different things I could use my command points for actually became a little bit overwhelming, and I ended up using them for the same things, like basically to re-roll. That was pretty much what I was using them for. Oh, I'll use a command point to re-roll. In Warcry, how you have your wild dice, and if you don't use it in the first round, you can carry it over to the second. The same thing applies in Kill Team with your command points. If you don't use them in the first round, you can carry them over into the second and the subsequent rounds and let them build up. And some abilities will take 2 command points, so you might want to save them for a later round. The other thing that is in Kill Team that isn't in Warcry is what they call specialisms. And this is basically where you can take, and I'm going to reference this so I don't butcher it, you can basically take different types of kind of specialisms for your models, for your army, if you like, or your different soldiers. So your leader has a leader specialism, and basically there is something that you get a little boost at level 1. There's a bit of a skill tree I'll just show you here, so you can kind of see these kind of like down here, these skill trees. And when you're playing in match play, you can only ever go to level 1. If you're playing in campaigns or narrative games, you can link them together and kind of work your way down that skill tree and leveling them up, which is actually quite a nice touch. But again, these unlock special sort of abilities that you spend a command point on, and you can do something specific. So, for example, a leader special at level 1 is level 1 leader tactic. Use this tactic when you pick a leader from your kill team, fight in the fight phase. Choose another friendly model within 3 inches of them that is eligible to fight. You can fight with each of these models in order of your choice before the next player's turn. So this allows you to kind of attack twice before your opponent gets a turn to kind of to come back at you. You then get combat specialists, which give you things like basically you can immediately fight with them for using the combat, for using a command point. You get comms specialists, you get demolition specialists, you get heavy specialists, and you get medic specialists. There's a scout specialist, a sniper specialist, a veteran specialist, a zealot specialist. So there's lots of different options you can do to kind of very thematically, and depending upon what their bonuses are, build a really kind of deep and complex kill team. Now, what I found when I was playing, especially when I first started playing, is that it was just too much to take in. And what I ended up doing was pretty much ignoring the specialisms, ignoring the majority of those command point options, and basically using my command point. I was basically getting a free reroll every round, every turn, if you like. That's what I was basically ending up with. However, that was when I found I was having the most fun. When I kind of forgot about a lot of those like additional or optional stuff, and I just sort of enjoyed playing it like that. The board always looked fantastic. The Kill Team original box, which you can kind of see over my shoulder there, the starter box, had some amazing terrain in it. I loved painting it up. I loved sort of setting my models up and taking pictures of it in that terrain. And the games just looked really nice. I really enjoyed playing it. But there was just too many kind of levels of stuff for what I wanted to get out of it at that stage. Then what happened was, VJ saying specialisms always sounds like butchered English. I know it doesn't sound right, does it? It never did, even to my ears. So I always used to play with kind of some of the rules missing, if you like. It was at this point that things like Rogue Trader came out, Elites came out, Commanders came out, or Commanders, then Elites came out, and then Arena. And again, I think GW have learned from this when it comes to Warcry. So when the Elites which was first, Commanders was first, this introduced new rules to the game and introduced new kind of models to be able to take in the game as well. And at this point, I kind of thought it was really, really quickly on the back of Rogue Trader came out. So the initial box came out. A few weeks later, Rogue Trader came out. A few weeks later, Commanders came out. And it was all quite a lot very quickly. And whilst Rogue Trader felt like a standalone expansion, at the time, Commanders felt like you must have this. So that was kind of, I felt like I hadn't even been using all of the rules that were out there already, and the game was starting to move away from me. I continued to play a bit longer, and then not long after that, Elites came out as well. And that was, again, another thing where it felt like you must have this to play. Now, looking back on it, they're probably optional. However, it did kind of create a bit of a split of, are we using these rules? Are we not using these rules? What list are you building? Well, I want to use my new stuff from the new rules. Well, you haven't got them. It was this weird kind of sort of mix of confusion, if you like. It became confusing. Then, probably 6 months later, along came Kill Team Arena. And this was basically because they were trying to streamline the game to make it more balanced for competitive play. So the game was always designed for sort of matched play, for competitive play wasn't the word they used, but it was designed, it was competitive. Oh, sorry. I think it was competitive, they called it originally, or something like that anyway. Arena was specifically focused on trying to be that kind of symmetrical deployment, symmetrical board layout, symmetrical terrain. It lost a lot of the game's visual appeal because it was, if you've seen Necromunda boards, how they've got basically like blacked out walls and stuff. Arena was exactly the same. But it was just, it kind of lost some of the visual appeal whilst it actually played a lot slicker because line of sight and all that kind of stuff become less of an issue. I think with Warcry, a lot of people were worried when Monsters and Mercenaries was announced so quickly after the starter set. However, we now know because it's out and we know what's in it. We now know it definitely is an optional edition. You don't have to buy it. If you do buy it and you choose to use some of those allies that's in there, the mercenaries, you can still play your 1,000-point game against somebody that doesn't have a mercenary. So if I don't buy the book and you do, we can still play an evenly matched 1,000-point game. And there are no additional rules in that expansion that supersede rules that are in the original core book. So again, I think GW have learned from the Kill Team experience, and maybe that the community was a little bit confused about what was optional, what was necessary, all those kind of things. Even if you look at Arena now, if you play the competitive Arena games, there's one you can use. I think you can use Commanders, but you can't use Elites. So again, even that's a little bit kind of muddy still. At the minute, Warcry has just a bit more streamlined, and the expansion is most certainly optional. And a lot of it is focused around telling stories and expanding the narrative campaigns. So yeah, that's kind of, in a bit of a long-winded nutshell, that's most of the differences between them. I'll pop back into the chat now, and then I'll kind of wrap up what I think of that stuff as well. Where did I get to roughly? Let's dive in here anyway. Hojinder's saying his hobby stops at the painting. Have so many miniatures to paint. Most people's hobby stop before they even get to the painting, mate. Brian's in. He said, I bought all in on Kill Team, and after playing it a few times, I realised I made a huge mistake. Warcry is vastly superior in his opinion. Yeah, again, it's kind of horses for courses, but I'm glad you found the game that was exactly what you're looking for. Paul's saying it's all about the hobby. He's not a competitive player. Want to buy and build and paint. I love playing the games, and I love going to tournaments just to meet people and play more games. But I never go with the intention of kind of winning a tournament or anything like that. I certainly don't kind of practice scenarios and stuff beforehand. The amount of times I've gone to tournaments and turned up and like went, right, how do we play this scenario kind of thing. Jonathan says he's planning on trying the arena objectives in normal Kill Team games. Spice it a little bit. Be interesting to see how that goes, mate. Bobby's saying the unique warbands and new sculpts for Warcry attracted me more than familiar Kill Team models. Yeah, I honestly think they learned from that, mate, as I said before. We've got Caesar in. Good evening, buddy. He said he loves both Kill Team and Warcry, but AOS is still his favourite game to play. I think I remember you first ever commenting on one of my videos, Caesar, was one when I was doing the how to play Age of Sigmar rules way back when I first started. So yeah, I'm not surprised you're still playing it, mate. Paul says, I don't think Kill Team is small scale 40k. Surely they streamline things and tighten them up for smaller squads. No, not really, mate. You'd be surprised, actually. A lot of it is 40k, and really the activations is the thing that kind of changes it from 40k the most. So it's not a case of I pile all my stuff in and then you're all dead. The way they've changed them activations is the biggest difference. Most of the game from that point onwards, pretty much 40k. Zingbo saying, no chance I'll move to 40k. I went the same way as you and got several Kill Teams and Warcry rather than expanding. And VJ says, yeah, Kill Team brought me back after 20 years, but not even play the full game. I end up drifting into small scale AOS and Warcry. Interesting, mate, in how these things happen. Regardless of where you are now, they got you in, didn't they? So I guess it was mission accomplished at that point. Mark F is in the chat there. He says, which of the two games would you advise using to show someone that has never played a miniature game before? In that respect, mate, I would say Warcry all day. It is just more simple to get your head round. The rule to hit, the rule to wound, the rule to injure, the saving rules, that whole rolling mechanic thing just bogs the game down a little bit for first-time gamers. If you're into the crunching the rules and trying to save and all this kind of stuff, Kill Team is great. It's fantastic. But if you're a brand new gamer and all you want to do is basically move models and have a fight, Warcry is the much easier entry point, I would say. Phil Hall is in as well. He says, after 30 years away, it was Warcry that dragged me kicking and screaming back to the hobby. You and a few others, mate, I bet. Paul said, I fell asleep in the second Lord of the Rings movie. That's a controversial topic, mate, but I wouldn't disagree with you. People keep saying to me, oh, you have to watch the extended versions. You get the full story, and it's like, I'm really struggling to keep my eyes open watching the normal versions. Like, I'm not going to be able to, like, suddenly be watch more of the longer versions. Al's saying he came back to the hobby because of Kill Team, never stopped reading novels, but Aurora amassed a large Raven Guard force with a view to playing and learning to play at larger 40k games. When I first started painting models, because I had no intention of ever playing the games, I just wanted to build models and paint them, I built a rather large Raven Guard army. And with the new releases coming this weekend, I'm quite tempted to pick some up just as a little kind of private little hobby kind of project. Not to play the game, almost just to, over a period of time, once every few months, paint a couple of models. Just something away from the YouTube stuff, away from kind of playing games, just to get back to just kind of painting for fun and maybe amass like a little kind of Raven Guard army again, because I sold all my Raven Guard stuff after I played my first game of 40k. Tim saying for me, I enjoy both Warcry and Kill Team. It's not about either being like their parent games, but what my hobby time allows now. I don't have time for 2,000 point games. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same, mate, as well. I don't have time to paint armies for 2,000 point games, and I don't have a lot of time to play them either. But I think Kill Team is definitely closer to 40k though, however, than Warcry ever is to AOS. Glenn says, watch Dark Crystal Age of Resistance on Netflix. You'll get excited for fantasy after that. I did see it was on there, mate, actually. And I don't even think I've ever watched the original Dark Crystal. Honestly, like I say, fantasy stuff has just never really been my bag. I'm really surprised I've kind of fallen hook, line, and sinker for the AOS, like kind of Warcry lore stuff. I'm trying to think of like fantasy stuff really that I've really kind of enjoyed. Like things like sort of even like Magic the Gathering's never really interested me from like that kind of, you know, like wizards. And I think the only time I've really been into fantasy was obviously played Hero Quest. You can kind of see it on the shelf behind me. And I remember playing Gauntlet as a kid with their kind of like wizard and elf and warrior and wizard, elf, warrior, and dwarf, wasn't it? I think that's what it was. Playing that in arcade machines and playing it on my home computer and stuff with mates. That's probably the closest I've ever really got to fantasy. But Star Wars has always kind of been my first love, and that's sci-fi's always kind of. I'd much rather sit down and watch a sci-fi film than watch a fantasy film. G Daddy Gamer says, I like both games. I started a 40k army. The limitation is money. Warcry has really sparked my painting mojo. I'm glad to hear that, mate. It's nice when something just kind of reignites that fire in your belly when it comes to hobbying and stuff. Because this hobby does rely upon kind of getting models built and painted. And if you're not enjoying that, it's really difficult to kind of to motivate you to play more games, isn't it? So I'm glad you got a sort of fire back. Glenn says, thoughts on errata and rules changes for Warcry, specifically the best way to remember something's being changed. I don't want to write on my cards, for example. Right. I'll tell you what time is it now? Let's check the time. It's almost 10 o'clock. I'll read through a few more chats and then we'll spend the last kind of half hour going over what anything anybody else wants to chat about, and we'll talk about errata for Warcry, because I'll kind of wrap up on this Kill Team chat. And then we'll go on to that, mate. So I'll come back to that one. Rob saying that's how he plays Kill Team. Robert Zunk, do you prefer Robert, or Bob? I noticed you were Bobby in the what's it called, Discord channel. Which do you prefer, mate? I've always called you Rob, but do you prefer Bob or Bobby? Paul's chat just went flying off the top of the screen there. Paul's saying, from what I've heard, Warcry is a more simple game, which is good from the point of view of getting more people into it. I feel like I could teach Warcry to my granny. Warcry is simple to teach, but there's a lot of tactics in what you do with the options you've got available. So it's not a simple game. It's easy to play and it's easy to learn. But the tactics is a big part of it. That's what I love about it. I feel like I know the game inside out, but it doesn't mean I get the tactics right. David Houghton's in as well. He said he started AOS and never had enough models for a game. That was why I started with Beastclaw Raiders, mate. I made a point of starting with an army that was never going to need a lot of model. He says, Warcry enabled me to push my meager collection round the table in a proper game. I'll happily buy into Kill Team to start 40k. Well played, GW. They know what they're doing, don't they? They definitely know what they're doing. But yeah, I'm kind of tempted to get Kill Team back on the table again as well. Not because I want to buy a load of new models, just I've got stuff there. Warcry's kind of reignited my love of that kind of small 30 by 22, is it 30, whatever it is, size board games. Like I can play them on my desk kind of thing. And I've got all the stuff, so I might as well pull it back out again. Jonathan saying tons of depth in Warcry. Yeah, easy to pick up, hard to master. Exactly, mate. And Rob saying there, the games are easy to play without looking at the rules and what I enjoy. 100%, mate. It's what I enjoyed about playing Walking Dead when I first got back into gaming. It's what I enjoyed about sort of Vanguard, really. Vanguard's got a lot more to remember, and I had to write loads of little cheat sheets and cheat notes. So I like all of the keywords in Vanguard. I had to write on the back of the cards what all them different keywords meant, so I wasn't keep flicking through the book and stuff. But that's the kind of thing you get used to with more games. But yeah, Warcry, kind of, I feel like I read the rules once and I knew them all. And so I've always just been thinking about how to play the game, sort of from a tactical point of view, what's the best options, rather than how do I play the game, if you like. VGC and Kill Team was GW's first double in alternating activations. I think they learned from that and nailed it in Warcry. 100%, mate. Jason saying I had a very similar experience as you with Kill Team. I forgot half of what I could do and had no clue what my opponent could do. I'm glad it wasn't just me. I mean, I've got one of these like kind of brains, I think, where I can only hold so much information at one time because I'm thinking of a million different things. Like, I feel like my brain's constantly kind of in overdrive, thinking of lots of different things. What I'm going to do tomorrow? What did I do this morning? Like, I really kind of I find it tough to focus on one thing at a time. So it's very difficult to remember very heavy rule sets. That's why Necromunda doesn't work for me, because there's too much to kind of remember. And if I go too long between games, I forget what I learned playing that last game, if you like. That's why Warcry for me just ticks that box, because it feels like I read it, it sunk in, and then I can get on with just enjoying it. Jonathan says you spend much less time checking the rule book. Definitely, mate. Rerolling ones, Jack. Good evening, buddy. Nice to see you in. Said I don't think the original Dark Crystal holds up. I'll not bother going back and watching it, mate, in that case. Richard Cartwright in as well. He says bring back Hero Quest. Yeah, that one up there behind me is my original Hero Quest from when I was a kid, and there's 2 expansions in there as well. And one day I will go back and paint all the miniatures in there. I stripped them all recently because there was some I'd made a start on when I was a kid, and it looks like I kind of was shooting at them with a paintball gun from sort of like 300 foot away. They were awful, so I stripped them all back. So at some point I might get in and paint them up. Dear, it is Valkyrie shot the food. Happy memories, mate, of that. Happy memories. A little while ago, up in Newcastle, there's a museum thing called Centre for Life. It's not really a museum; it's like a research centre, but they've got a bit of a museum thing in there. And once a year, like there's a thing called Game On 2.0, where they bring a load of kind of like the history of computer games and stuff, and old arcade machines and things. And I took my 2 teenage sons a few years ago. And when we got there was a 4-player gauntlet cabinet, and it was like, right, boys, we're playing this. And it was just like, I was kind of like, and I was going, like, don't shoot that, don't shoot that. Right, don't go down that exit, keep going, because if you come around here, you can jump like 5 levels and go down, like, go to level 8. And they were like, how do you know all this? It's like, I used to spend all of my pocket money in the arcades playing this. It's funny what you kind of like never forget. Bob or Rob. Right, mate, that's all right. As long as I'm not calling you something you don't like. VJ saying Hero Quest is the greatest. This is true. I even picked up an old set for when my son is old enough to learn. Yeah, definitely, mate. I missed a couple of things there as well. Michael Marine says I lost so many quarters to Gauntlet. Yeah, me as well, mate. And Alan K is in as well. He says played a 4-round Warcry event at one of the GW stores this weekend. Really excited to see more match play events pop up, because the more I play this game, the more I want to play. Good to hear, mate. Nice to see Dice Guy in as well. He says loves Vanguard. Tony Howell says agree with what a few have said. Warcry, Kill Team both have reignited the fire to hobby and paint, as the gaming option is out for me. Richard saying still watching copies of Hero Quest on eBay. Wild Thing Studios in. Good evening, buddy. Says I never played Vanguard, but between that and Warcry, who's your favourite and why? At this point in time, mate, Warcry is definitely my favourite. The reason being is I absolutely love the models. I love the simplicity of buy a box, which is a warband, which is 1,000 points or as close as damn it, and I can paint them up, and then I've got my warband. That's it. I don't have to think about list building. All of the stats for the models are in the box, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Vanguard started with a similar kind of sort of method, where if you bought kind of the warbands were almost split into 2 boxes. There was a kind of like a starter box, if you like, or a core box, which had the models in. It maybe had like 10 models or something like that in, and it had the cards for those particular models. and then you could buy like a resin upgrade pack, which gave you some of the kind of like the beasts and the kind of the heavies and stuff. As Vanguard's gone on, that model's being changed now. So, for example, if you're wanting to buy goblins or dwarves, they're kind of scattered now all over in individual purchases. And the problem with that is not all. So some of the stats are in the rule book, but not all of them. The other stats are on the cards, and you don't know kind of the stats unless you buy the miniature. So it's quite hard to list build. I know they're now on Easy Army as well, but it's another kind of complication really. Because I'm not really into list building, I like to just buy a box of models and I can go and play them. And with Warcry, I've got 6 war bands. I can just go out and buy a box and get it on the table. The lore of Warcry for me personally has made it much more interesting as well. It's kind of added to the game for me. The other thing is, because the starter box comes with terrain and the board and everything else as well, I can get it straight on the table. For me, it was a bit of a hurdle getting into Vanguard because I had to have a mat to play on. I had to buy specific terrain because everything I had was kind of sci-fi terrain. I'd never been into fantasy games before, so I had to start buying sci-fi terrain. And the game plays much better with a lot of terrain, just the same way Warcry does. So it's not kind of cheap if you like to do it that way. There was just a few more hurdles. The biggest problem, there's not a lot of people play it locally either. So I tended to play the same kind of few people over and over. With Warcry, there's naturally a bigger audience as well. But I would say the biggest thing is just Warcry's rules are just so simple, and they sat in my head really. Vanguard's rules are pretty simple, but there's a lot more to remember. So there's a lot of kind of keywords that match up with Kings of War, like inspiring and in fact I can't even remember them. Kind of speaks volumes really. But basically they'll have a keyword, and this means that you get +1 in combat or something like that. All of these kind of adjustments and stuff like that, you just got to remember them. I've got them all written down on bits of paper, kind of dotted around, so I end up with loads of bits of cards around me when I'm playing. That's all. But they're both good games. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy playing Vanguard. But if I could only play one, it would be Warcry. Flying Mammal says, "Can we play I Miss Hero Quest?" I'll bring it on the weekender. I promise. Right. Let's do a couple of more chats. Andy Holmes is in, saying he used to have Hero Quest. Switch between that and Space Crusade. I never had Space Crusade, mate. Colton Lane's in, saying Blood Bowl's a ton of fun. That's up there as well. Actually, I think it's up there. And I've got the old original Blood Bowl as well. Neil Goose says, a few years back when emptying the house to sell it, my dad threw away my copy of Hero Quest, along with first edition Space Hulk, Space Crusade, and his 40 Rogue Trader, battle cards and RPGs. Bet you could cry, man. Stone Monk Gamers in it. Good evening, buddy. If anybody hasn't listened to Dogs of Warcry podcast yet, shame on you. Shame on you indeed. Get yourself over to iTunes, onto your podcast streams. Check out the Mortal Realms podcast and you'll see the Dogs of Warcry stuff. That's been put up there already. But the Dogs of Warcry podcast will be on its own sort of stream, if you like, very soon. 2 really, really good episodes up there to listen to. And Stone Monk Gamer and his buddies are the guys that are doing it. So thank you for what you do for the community, buddy. There's only a handful of kill team games with orcs. I'm partial to fantasy, but Warcry's emphasis on combat over shooting appeals from a gameplay perspective. Kill team is still too much shooting for me. Kill team is a lot of shooting. If you run a horde kind of close combat army, you have to get across the board and you've got to stick in cover. Otherwise, you'll get picked off on your way across. You can manage to get there, you'll do some damage, but unfortunately, sitting back, hiding, not moving, getting to shoot first is really, really powerful. Right, errata. I was just going to start chatting about that, wasn't it? Take 10 minutes ago. For those that don't know, GW published the first errata and FAQs for Warcry on Friday evening. They address a few things. The 2 key points they address, and you might have seen my video on this, so if you haven't, please go and watch it in a bit more detail. They address the height of the terrain not being quite 3 inches, and they now have a rule in there which basically rounds up the the height of vertical measurements. So that can be quite key in a few instances. They've clarified the cover now. The cover rule has actually completely changed now. You can almost you can ignore the old cover rule now, and you can basically, there's a new one that is, whilst it's a bit more wordy, it visually represents the way cover would work on a battlefield. So if there is something, if you're shooting at me and there's something between us, then I get cover, for example. There are some of the match play cards that have had their kind of their wording changed. So, for example, I think there's one where you used to place the objective an inch from the center point, and now it's moved to 6 inches, I think it is. And it said basically in battle round 3, you check for this win condition, and it's changed to battle round 4. Now, the question from Glenn, I think it was how do you track these changes? There were a number of other changes as well, I should say as well. But rather than me explain them all, go and check out the document. Excuse me. So how do you track these changes? Glenn's asking, he doesn't want to write on his cards. So what I've done, Glenn, is if there is a card in the, like in the, what they call again, the win conditions, the victory conditions. If there's a card in that pile that has changed its wording, I've put a little coloured sticker on the face of the card. So when they're face down, you can't see which one it is. But when you flip it over, there's a little coloured sticker there, and that tells me something has changed, and to reference the rules, kind of the FAQ. And I've just printed off the errata and the FAQ, and I've just tucked it in the back of the book. So I've just put a tiny little coloured sticker on the card to kind of alert me and tell me that there's been a change. I've done the same thing on the abilities cards that I've changed as well. So rather than writing on the card, I've just put a little sticker on that's just said, basically, remind me there's a change. And I'm sure over time I'll remember what that means. The other thing that I plan to do that I haven't done yet is any rule in the core book that has changed, I'll go with a highlighter pen and I'll just highlight that section, and that again will just trigger me to see when I'm looking for a rule, if I ever need to, I'll say, oh, that's changed from what the book is, and I'll have a look at the reference. So I'm not specifically writing with a pen on the cards, I'm just popping a sticker on them just to kind of jog my memory. So if I draw that one out, oh, I can see something has changed from what it says here. So that's how I've done it. I know other people might want to write onto kind of, or print onto sticky paper and stick them into their rule books or stick them on top of the cards. These are all valid things as well, but I just figured it was just as easy. It's more about just triggering me to tell me something's changed, and then I can go and look it up. It'll happen so infrequently that I don't think it's a big kind of inconvenience, but it's nice to see that they've basically reacted as quickly as they have, really. Where we're at here, Neil, that's heartbreaking, mate. All that stuff getting thrown away. This guy says, I do not judge. Reroll is your friend. Jonathan saying, I end up buying 2 boxes of Cypher Lords for a 1k list. Just got a second box of both. The start box has more options. Yeah, and to be honest, if you want more options, that's what you've got to do. For me personally, I'm playing for fun, really, so I'm happy with just the 1,000 points you get in the box. I'm not going to win any particular games. That's not really what I'm about. Once I've been playing for a while, I might decide to expand it. For me, the allies from Monsters and Mercenaries is probably the best thing that could have happened, because what it means is I've got a lot of, I'm kind of pointing over here because they're right in front of me. I've got about 9 models there from Silver Tower and from Gold Chosen that can be used as mercenaries, and that is enough for me to kind of mix up my warbands a little bit. I take this model out, I can put this one in, or I take these 2 out and put that one in, or that kind of stuff. That's enough to kind of mix it up for me a little bit and keep me interested for a while. So I'm happy with that. Stormont Gamer says, thanks for the shout. Back at you. Not a problem, buddy. Really appreciate everything you've done. I've been going back and listening to some of your older stuff as well, and kind of catching up on all of the AOS lore and stuff. I think it's a really, really good podcast. Anybody that's kind of interested in that background lore, 2 places to go. One is check out the Mortal Realms podcast. The other one is go and check out Doug at 2 Plus Tough. Both fantastic resources for filling you in on the AOS background. Wild Thing Studio says, by the way, clear that dust from Warhammer Quest Silver Tower and Shadows over Hammerhall. There are a ton of miniatures for Warcry in there. Yeah, I've searched through them all, and they're all sitting here ready to get painted. David Houghton says the big one for him was bonus actions happen immediately. Yeah, I always thought that was the case, mate, but I guess it needed clarifying. Somebody asked me that in a question on one of my videos recently about when does it happen, and I said that it happens immediately because if you wait until you activate the model, in theory, if the model's already activated, you wouldn't get to use it. That's the whole point of it, really. It's almost like when you trigger that bonus action, the player pauses, you complete your bonus action, and then you carry on as you work, kind of thing. Black's Carrick's in as well. He's been quietly lurking tonight, painting up some 10mm dinosaur stuff. Are they still dinosaurs when they're that small, mate? Neil says, yeah, Warcry for me was everything I'd hoped Kill Team would be in a skirmish game. Not so convoluted. Yes, mate. I would completely agree with you. I think we've come out from exactly the same place. It's everything. Kill Team isn't bad. Please don't get me wrong. But Warcry was just that so much more streamlined. It was exactly what I was looking for. He also says, after seeing Blackstone Fortress, I wondered what happened, and then Warcry is what happened. What do you mean by that, mate? Because I've been tempted by Blackstone Fortress, because I very recently found out you could play that solo. So what do you mean by that? Bill says, are they going to reissue the change cards? No, I don't think they are, mate. They never do that for any other game. So if things get updated, you need to have the latest errata. Basically, they're not going to update the cards. It doesn't break the game, for example. So if you weren't aware that there's a errata there, you can still continue to play it. It's just that they've kind of tweaked a few things to balance them out. Richard Cartwright saying Warcry needs to add dwarves and lizard men. Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before we see some of that stuff coming in. Tom's shouting out there for Dogs of Warcry, yep. Ruth saying night for the Natter as usual. Weekender. Can't wait, Ruth. Can't wait for it. Not long now, is it like 4 weeks or something? It'll soon be here. BJ says, where is the list of what can be used for Warcry? I have Silver Tower. So, mate, the list it's in two places essentially. If you buy the Monsters and Mercenaries book, all of the stats for those models are all listed in there. If you go to the GW website, if you go to Boxed Games at the top of the screen, if you then filter it by Warcry, there is an Allies tab. And if you click on that, it will show you all of the models that you can use as allies. It won't give you the stats for the models, but it'll tell you which ones you can use. So yeah, I think there's about six that are in that set that you can use. Flying Marbles and Top Bands and Mugwort. It's been a while since we've had a hashtag Top Bands. Christian saying good night. Adam says, who's this new bloke hosting Andy's stream? I keep forgetting about that, mate. I have to look at this face every day. I forgot about the beard. And Jonathan Hort says, night to Flying Mammal as well. So, last 15 minutes. You tell me what you want to chat about. Tell me what you've been playing this week. Tell me what you're looking forward to. For those of you that play Kill Team, it has the new starter box coming out. Has that kind of reinvigorated your local scene? Are more people picking it up again now? Or is it kind of just carrying on like it always has, either really popular or really quiet? Let me know what is happening around your area. Excuse me while I have a drink. VJ there is saying, thanks mate, much appreciated. Yeah, we'll buy the book when I can. Just want to see what I should start painting. Yeah, I did the same thing, mate. I checked out the Allies list on the GW website. Essentially, if it's whichever allegiance, if you like, whichever Grand Alliance it's linked to, so if it's either death, order, chaos, or destruction, if that ally is part of that kind of sort of faction, you can use it with your war bands that are in that faction. So, for example, the 6 new ones are all Chaos war bands. You can use any of the Chaos allies. Stormcast, for example, or Order, you can use any of the Order allies. That's essentially the only restrictions. Carrier's in as well. He says, sorry I'm late, just got in from work. Nice to see you, Carrie. How are you doing, mate? Nice to see you. Steve Evans says, Dreadball. I wish I knew more about it, mate, to talk about it. It's just, Dreadball, fun game, being left to kind of just. It's been left to the community to play it. There's been nothing new for so long. That's the problem with that game. Craig Lowther says, I'm totally loving Aeronautica. Blood Red Skies in 40k. The set moves really make you think. I've been up and down on this whether I should pick it up or not, mate. Initially, I wasn't interested in the slightest. And when it got to the release weekend, I was looking at it thinking, actually, the models were a lot nicer than I expected. And then I thought, I'll probably get it to the table like twice. I'll probably never play it. So then I put myself off it again. Now there's a few people locally been picking it up. And the more I look at it, the more it could be a little fun side game, I think. I don't think I'd expand it outside of the box set. It's like about 30 quid with discount locally for that set. So maybe at some point, if there's going to be quite a big gap with nothing new for Warcry before I've got Super Fantasy Brawl kind of shipping in the new year from the Kickstarter that I backed, if there's nothing in that kind of time frame coming, I potentially might go back and pick it up for a little bit of kind of a bit of a change of pace of stuff. But yeah, I'm interested to know what you think, mate, because I know you're banging to Blood Red Skies as well. Where are we at? Glenn is saying, your thoughts on some of the card packs for Warcry going out of print on GW's site. I think, mate, is these were always going to be something where there was a limited run of them. So like anything when it gets printed, they basically order them. They'll probably come from China. They get packaged, they come over, and they probably sold better than they expected. I have heard rumours that they're not planning on reprinting them, and that those cards, if you like, that information will be available online as a download, as a free download. Potentially they might end up in a future book or something like that. I think as long as people get the option to use those kind of war bands that they already have, like existing AOS models, if they've been available now, if you like, if they were available on launch day, I don't want to see a situation where new people coming in can't access them factions and it just pushes the price of cards up online. I don't want to see that happening. So I don't mind them not being reprinted as long as they make them available to everybody, either for free or for a charge. If it's like a couple of pounds for a digital version of it, whatever it is, I just want to see people being able to access them. But them not reprinting them, it's not the end of the world for me personally. But I would say that because I have them all. I bought all 9 packs at launch. So maybe I feel a little bit different about it. If I was somebody just getting into it now, I might feel a bit aggrieved about it. However, as long as they make them stats available for everybody, be that free or at a charge, I don't really mind what that is, then I don't mind too much. Where are we at? G Daddy Gamer saying, I wish the new Kill Team starter had the terrain from the first starter. Yeah, it's a shame because the stuff from the first starter was awesome. Feels like they've pulled back a little bit on this one, doesn't it? Adam saying he hasn't been to the store to play for a while, been too crook and crazy. Busy at work, don't imagine it made much difference, to be honest. It's a shame that, because I'd like to see you get a bit of a Kickstarter. Like a bit of a Kickstart ready to move on. Rob's been painting up his Lord of the Rings starter set. Craig saying Rumble Slam's an awesome Wii game. Yeah, it's not a bad shout, actually. I've got all my Rumble Slam painted up as well. Hardly played it, mine, to be fair. Richard saying, since GW like to release a second version of these games, can you see the next Warcry having 2 unreleased bands in them as the sale arc, or will they be released before Christmas? I think they'll just release the 2 war bands like as a pre-order one weekend or something like that, just as normal. I can't see them releasing a second version. They haven't released a second version of Kill Team. That's been out for a year. They've had some errata for the rules. Necromunda, I think, needed the kind of... Necromunda hasn't technically had a second version. They've just brought in all of the errata and had an updated rule book, if you like, and brought everything into 2 books rather than being spread out across 5. I think that was a massive mistake when they first started. But I can't see them really releasing second versions of Warcry. Certainly not in the next 12 to 18 months. I think what we'll see is they've already said they're going to doing an errata in the summer and an errata at Christmas. So I can't, unless they suddenly find there's a lot of stuff needs changing, which judging by the first set of errata there's not. I can't see why they would print another book. Like Kill Team, for example, if you buy the new Kill Team starter set, nearly 18 months down the line, you still get this same core book with it. You still, so I can't see them doing a second one, mate. But Bobby Clark says, is the preference for playing games with more simplified rules and the age thing? For myself, I recall loving complicated games in my late teens. Quite the opposite now. I never really played in my late teens and stuff. I dabbled with it kind of in my early teenage years with things like Blood Bowl and stuff, and more painting models and Hero Quest. But pretty much through my teens and my 20s, I didn't play at all, mate. So I didn't really get into my 30s. But I've never been a fan of like super complicated rules. I really enjoyed playing Malifaux, and again, the core rules weren't too bad. All of the abilities were on cards in front of you, so I felt like I could sit there and kind of flick through stuff rather than trying to search through a book for things. I knew the core rules, and then all of the things I could do were on cards in front of me. I love playing War Machine and Hordes. Again, rules were relatively straightforward. All the things I could do were on cards in front of me. That's always been my preferred way of playing, I think. That's why when I played Walking Dead, core rules are pretty solid. All the things I can do are on cards in front of me. Even down to things like sort of Vanguard, really. The core rules, pretty solid. All of pretty much the stuff's on the cards in front of me. So it might be an age thing, but I've always just preferred that kind of style of game, I think. So yeah, who knows, mate. BGC, I'll have to buy a Chaos Warband now so I can use the Ogroid. Yes, I'm just looking at my Ogroid down there, mate. You need some colour in them. Mark's in as well. It's saying Warcry's made me want to try Rangers of Shadow Deep. I heard a lot of good things about Rangers of Shadow Deep. Again, I don't think it's my kind of game, really. I think it's just it's something I know I couldn't get local players to play, so I'd end up just playing it on my own. And if I want to play solo games, there's other stuff I think I'd rather play rather than start again. Jonathan saying hopefully they'll print more cards. I'd like to see them print more cards, mate. That would be the ultimate solution. But if they don't, I just want to make sure nobody misses out, really. BG saying nice to see I can use my Gracer yet. Yes, you can, mate. Wild Thing Studio says sliding doors. What do you think now Warcry could become? I'd like to know your suppositions about one good route and one bad route. Okay, so a bad route we'll start with is if they start churning out expansions like there's nobody's business and each one has rules creep which bloats the game and confuses the entire community. So if they go off down that route and it's a case of I can't keep up, I can't afford, because a lot of people can't, I can't afford to keep buying these new expansions. There's some rules scattered in White Dwarf. It's all over the place. A little bit like Necromunda did. I'd hate to see that happen. Conversely, on the really nice path, I want to see them carry on like they are, where the expansions are optional. They add story modes, basically. They add narrative missions. They add kind of fun things like monsters, which don't break the sort of matched play, if you like. The one-off games that I play most of the time doesn't break any of that stuff. And they just bring more options, more interesting, fun things to the game that are not basically just changing the rules. I want the rules, the core rules, to stay really simple, and I just want fun, optional additions that will enrich that experience and bring more kind of memorable moments to my games. So things like monsters coming in is a great addition. Allies coming in, bring some new factions in. So we've got 2 more to look forward to. We've got a load of AOS factions haven't been touched yet. I'd love to see a bit of a crossover with with Underworlds. So when new Underworlds warbands come out, either make them allies that can be that can come in, or maybe make them the core of a warband that you can add allies to. That kind of stuff. That's where I'd like to see it go, I think. And just expand it out. If they do decide to go with a second box down the line somewhere, set it somewhere else, kind of around the Varanspire, in a different part of the 8 points, and just kind of give us 2 completely new warbands in a new setting with maybe new kind of rules for the actual like area, like the, what do they call it in like environmental rules and stuff like that. Things that are optional that change the game. Additional kind of win condition victory cards, additional setup cards with the new terrain packs. All that kind of stuff really can mess about with the game and change it. You can add rules to what certain warbands can do with their abilities. A bit like how Corvus Cabal interacts with the 3-inch terrain. Do it that way, but don't screw with the core rules. That's kind of where I think I'd like to get to. Nostox says, I wish GW would do print on demand for things like that. Yeah, I can't see them ever doing that, mate. Fat Cat says we really need a decent campaign book. I think the campaign book's pretty solid, mate. I think it's pretty good, and the new monsters and mercenary stuff I think really adds to it. I think the difference is I'm not looking for something really crunchy and granular, and I think the people that maybe are looking for something better, they really want that. Maybe that'll come down the line, and there's nothing wrong with that at that point once everybody's kind of sort of got used to stuff. I just don't want it to jump from, this is a really easy to get into kind of game where the rules are really straightforward to, and here's a million things you can do and kind of overcomplicate it. I'd like to build to that point if that's what's going to happen. Carrie saying not here either. It's all 40k. Jonathan saying Kill Team got back into GW games after 22 years away. Yeah, there's loads of people like that, mate. And to be fair, it got me back into GW games. I've not really got into GW games that much. Kill Team really dragged me back in. Jonathan says he's finding it much more enjoyable than previous video game addiction. Been there as well, mate, yeah. Carrie says, do you think the original warbands will become obsolete as the game develops? No, I don't think so, mate. I mean, you can buy them now separately. I think what tends to happen is that the first warbands out tend to be very kind of middle of the road. They don't tend to be at the extremes of where the game is, because at that point, the developers probably don't know where the extremes are yet. So the same thing happened with kind of Underworlds as well. So I think they might become maybe not as interesting to play, but I don't think they'll basically become kind of obsolete. And we haven't got to forget as well is that, for example, what's out now for, say, Untamed Beasts isn't the end of it. They can bring out a whole new kind of 8 or 9 man pack, which kind of can either be played as 1,000 points on their own, or can be mixed with the original Untamed Beasts and give you lots of options. So there's nothing stopping them updating that original warband with some really fresh additions. So I don't see why it should come. I don't think they'd really do that. Timothy says, I think you just called it. Maybe the last 2 Chaos warbands might end up as a box set. I hope they don't, mate. I hope they just release them kind of singly. That would make more sense, I think. But who knows, eh? Paul says, I agree with that, but people always complain about watching. That's the thing with Games Workshop, is because they are the biggest company when it comes to miniature gaming. Some people will absolutely love everything they do. Some people will hate everything they do. And then in the middle, there'll be some people, much probably like myself, who just enjoy it if they enjoy it. And I think, unfortunately, because they are such a big company, they have such a strong support of kind of fanboys, for want of a better word, and they have such a strong anti-GW kind of crowd as well. I don't think any other company really has that extremes in that sizes. Carrie says, would love to see some free guild warbands. Who knows, mate? Imagine Acre Wood says, I would love to see more unique options for the new warband specific to the Warcry setting, such as the Amber for Necromunda. I think that's exactly what we'll start to see, really. I think, again, they've learned a lot from Necromunda, and the releases now are much more kind of reliable and frequent rather than when it first kind of kicked off. And Barry Cliver says, I've got to run. Thanks for another great chat. And with that, we've hit 10:30, so I think I'm going to run as well. So, thanks everybody for being in tonight. Really do appreciate it. Appreciate the chat. Might not have been for everybody's kind of taste tonight. I'm really sorry that my Monsters and Mercenary stuff didn't come. I couldn't talk any more in depth about that. Hopefully it'll be here and I'll get a few games in before next week. But yeah, have a wonderful week. If I manage to get some videos done for this week, make sure you check them out. If you haven't seen it already, check out the stuff that I did last week. We'll just very quickly see what we've got here. With Jonathan saying bye, Peter saying there's only one way to find out best fight. Was Thing Studio says thanks for the chat. You're very kind and are in line with your points. You gained a new ally friend here. Go on to subscribe, and just so you know, the Unmade are my happy band. See here. Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you for coming in. What a perfect way to end it. So, thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you next week for another Monday night live stream.